Hello, and welcome to Indie Book Magic, a podcast that connects geek readers and writers in an open, lighthearted, and occasionally random environment. We're your friendly hosts, Janeen Ippolito and
H.L. Burke.
And today we are kicking off what month, Heidi?
It's Family Month.
Aw, yay, family.
Yay.
Yes, we even have the Porg and the Plot Bunny with us to celebrate.
They're so sweet.
They are family.
And I'm wearing my cat shirt today, so
there you go.
That's my life.
I was noticing you were representing today, so that works. All I need now is a cat dragon shirt, and we're good to go.
They should make those. Somebody must make those, right? Are we gonna make those? Is that our next venture?
Yeah. I might have been looking into cat dragon swag. I mean, come on, it's cat dragons.
Awesome.
Kind of have to. So we're tackling family today, and since this is our writing episode, we're going to be talking about different ways to write about it. And we are starting off with the elephant in the room, which is orphans. We're not saying that all orphans are elephants, and we're not saying that all elephants are orphans.
So we do learn from Dumbo that often elephants end up with moms in jail.
Oh, poor Dumbo.
Oh, so sad. I cry every time.
But orphans tend to be rather controversial. You'll see in different writers groups and things, people complain, why are the main characters always orphans? Or conversely, why did the main character have parents when they really didn't do much with the story? So Heidi, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that orphans are an easy way to remove parental controls from a young character because, I'm a parent. I would not let my kid go on an adventure to save the world. If they
Mom,
I am the chosen one. I must lead the revolution. I'm like, you have
Claire totally would. She would. Like, she would be the one to do that.
Yeah, Claire would totally be the chosen one, except she would choose herself and then choose everything around her. But yeah, my kids are enough trouble already without prophecies. So yeah, it's like you have a choice of parents. They can be dead, they can be neglectful, or you have to find some way to make them work within the plot. Otherwise, they will keep rescuing the kid. It's just kind of what parents are supposed to do. That's why we were put on this earth, is to keep rescuing our kids from, eating Tide Pods. So yeah, if you don't have orphans, you're going to have to find, and I think this deals with mostly younger characters. I don't think an adult, nobody really cares if you're 30 while your father is letting you go on an adventure, because at that point, who cares? But yeah, for younger characters, I think you need that freedom for them to be able to have some self-management. And some parents there are ways to do that with parents, but taking away their parents is really like kicks the training wheels off them and forces them to be the hero,
No, I agree. And sometimes you just sometimes you just have to kill the parents off from the start. And sometimes it's not just because they would hold them back. But I have noticed that I have a decent amount of, I would say roughly half of my adult characters, the parents, are not around, they get killed off for some reason. The thing is, because parental figures are such a strong part of a character's life, or feel like they should be, they're kind of a normative thing, removing them in some way can give your character a really powerful wound, which is great for dealing with in the story and giving them lots of issues and things. So sometimes you just got to kill the parents off, either for the sake of, making sure that the younger child, doesn't have that kind of, as you said, restraining influence or things like that. Or in some cases doesn't have vital information that they would need to take over the world or, become the chosen one, so that, it gives them something to overcome. But even as adult characters, it can be a really nice wound to give them. So,
Yeah, I've had that. Like Bryce in My Green Princess thing has this major issue just because his father was executed. And so he's the criminal's son, or if your father disappeared rather than just died, that's another like major, well, where did he go? Why didn't he want me sort of thing that a character can deal with.
Yeah. And I know that with my story, The Ironfire Legacy, one of my characters, his family disappeared. He believes they're all dead, and he thinks he's the only living heir to his kingdom. And you're thinking, oh, well, he's a chosen one. I'm like, no, actually, he's forsaken. And he's like got this secret fear that, like, he dies and that's the end of the line. There is no one left to rule at all. That it all ends with him. And it makes him kind of like super cautious sometimes and kind of paranoid, which is a fun way to have to deal with that, to have that weight on you because there's no one else there.
Yeah, and there are ways to sideline parents, even in like young adult and middle grade fiction, where they aren't necessarily going to be there to watch over the kid. Portal fantasy has this really easy because the kid steps through the wardrobe and the parents aren't around. Mm-hmm. The parents may have thought this is a perfectly safe wardrobe. I don't generally check the closets in my kids' room for Narnia.
Whoa.
This is a neglectful thing that's going to come back to bite me, but I don't necessarily check closets for Narnia. So if my kid disappears and comes back when wearing a fur coat and smelling like Turkish delight, I don't know why. Portal fantasy has a way to sideline the parents to make them no longer an issue. Sometimes the thing will be actually saving the parents. If the parent gets kidnapped or stolen away by a mystical force, that's a pretty common. Mm-hmm. And it lets the kid be the hero to save the parents, which I think is a nice thing for. It's a big fantasy thing for a kid, or boarding schools.
Oh yes, they're popular boarding schools.
Yeah. And the other one is just clueless parents. I think you get a lot of that about Stranger Things. It's like these kids are fighting aliens in the background. The parents are just on the phone and watching soaps. And
yeah, you see that in things like Stranger Things and such. And that can come off as a little bit like ridiculous sometimes. But,
it was the 80s.
Just blame the decade. Oh, my. So those are some different things to deal with parents. Of course, the next thing we have is siblings. And the first thing with siblings is, what about these only children? Like, you see a fair amount of times in fiction where inexplicably your character is an only child. Even if a lot of their friends or things will have come from multi-sibling families, they will inexplicably be an only child. And again, this is something where it's easy as a reader to say, oh, well, why did they do that? It's just boring. But there are in fact good reasons why authors use only children a lot. And one of them is when you have more than one sibling, you have to figure out how they're going to interact together. You have to figure out how they're going to push each other. It really makes your plot more complicated in some ways. Sometimes, you have to get the kid to go through the portal just to leave the siblings behind as well, because it can be difficult to focus your family dynamics if everyone's got 3 or 4 siblings. It's just hard to make sure the reader stays focused on the protagonist's journey.
Yeah, and then you have to keep track of them. And if you have a character who's just there to fill out a sibling role, but doesn't really have anything else to do, there's not really any reason not to cut that character. That's part of editing for a lot of authors, is removing characters who really didn't do anything. Sometimes that will mean losing a sibling or two. Also, it's hard for the reader to keep track of like 6 siblings. Some series do get away with having major characters with lots of siblings. The Weasleys are a big thing of this. And they managed, I think most people could know most of the Weasley siblings, but, I can't even keep track of my own kids' names half the time. I only have 2. So it's like, how much work do you want to make your reader do to remember all these characters who might be in there just for a couple lines or one action, or just to be the sister,
Yeah, and the thing is, that is the important thing. If you're going to have siblings in your story, they need to have some kind of role in the conflict or the drama. They need to earn their keep like any other character, which means they need to bring out something unique in the protagonist and their journey that no other character can do. And if they can't do that, they've got to get the boot. That isn't to say that you have to get rid of siblings at all if they do work. I have an urban fantasy series that I'm working on. My main character has 2 younger sisters, and in that one, the siblings play a huge role in her life because she actually put her life on hold to adopt them and raise them when she was a teenager. So you have that as a unique part of her growth arc, and now as she's in her 30s, trying to figure out how does she live her life normally, because she kind of skipped over a lot of her fun years, raising her siblings. So you can do that, and you can have those dynamics and those pulls, but you have to understand that they do need to have a place in the story. They do need to have a place in the conflict.
Yeah, and if your character is an adult, this is less of an issue. A lot of these things come up with young adult because I think that family is a really big theme in children's books, finding your place in your family, leaving your family, things like that. It's less like I'm in my 30s and I have, I don't know if anybody knows this, I am the oldest of 6.
Wow, I didn't know that.
not a lot of people do. But I do not live in the same state as any of my siblings. I have not lived in the same state as any of my siblings for 10 years. I maybe go back home and visit them once a year. Talk on the phone I call them on their birthdays, but that's the extent of I see them. They're not, I could have an adventure and they would probably hear about it next week in the news. You know?
In the news. Wow. What kind of adventure do we have going on here, Heidi?
It's a news-changing adventure. But the point is that they don't necessarily have to do life. And you don't, with modern moving around and stuff, that's easier to do. If you're doing something, they can live in a different city or a different state as their family. Or they can just have left home. I have characters who have, like Jericho Carver in Spellspin the Carver has 2 siblings. So we don't even meet until book 3 because he lives away from home where he works. Mm-hmm. And he just only goes to visit them on his Thursdays off.
Right. So that can definitely be, something to compass to make sure that they have relevance to the story, they have relevance to the plot, and where are they going to factor into that? It doesn't mean that you can't have it in there. There are certain genres who tend to like siblings more than others, especially if you're writing adult fiction. You need to have a very clear vision of how they're going to fit in there. Otherwise, they just got to go. Talking about siblings, we're going to touch briefly on the most significant of siblings. And with the question, are twins more common in speculative fiction?
I think for a long time, twins have been associated with some sort of magic or fate, Janeen. I think it's because they're a little unusual, but you have like going back to Artemis and Apollo or Romulus and Remus, even Jacob and Isaac. No, sorry, Jacob and Esau. All right.
Isaac was the father, but yeah.
Yeah. But it's that concept of, it can be a concept of conflict, like the twins struggling in the womb. It can be or Romulus and Remus fighting each other for Rome. Or it can be like a night and day mirroring like Artemis and Apollo. So yeah, I think that there is like a tendency to do twins for some reason. What are some of your favorite twin tropes, Janeen?
Oh my goodness. I'm a huge fan of like twins having some kind of special bond, some kind of magical thing or something like that. I have a pair of twins in my steampunk series, Myra and Larome, and they're fraternal twins, which I like to see, kind of like Luke and Leia. Only Luke and Leia is awkward because reasons we know you didn't figure them out as siblings till movie 3. We know you didn't, but it did not read the same way. But it's fun to have them there. I think it's really fun because it's a great way, especially for adult stories, to make siblings really significant, because twins naturally are. There's a sense of stronger connection. There's a sense of, the idea of twins separated at birth still act the same way or like the same things. So if you're going to introduce significant siblings in more adult stories, making them be twins is a great way of making the reader more easily grasp, why this guy is going across country, not getting married, not having kids or anything, not having his own life to find a sister. If it's his twin sister, readers kind of accept that more. This is not to say that, siblings can't be devoted regardless. Again, any of you guys who are out there like, they keep knocking siblings. I love all of my siblings and talk to them weekly. That is great. But in terms of stories, adding the twin element can be a great way of kind of justifying in the reader's mind that this is something special. There is a reason why this guy has no dating life, because he's trying to find, his sister, or, she's trying to find her brother. And so it's kind of an easy way of managing that.
Yeah. And then you also get the opposite. We talk about that connection of loving your twin, but if your twin is the stereotypical evil twin, maybe you don't love them so much. I think most of my favorite evil twins are not actually twins. They are clones or parallel universe.
Doppelgangers. Yeah. Like in Star Trek or something where they enter that parallel universe. And
the mirror world. But yeah, I guess you could adopt your evil twin. Somebody's got to keep an eye on them.
That should be like a thing for a short story, evil twin adoption. All these like guys who are in there and you're there to rehabilitate them and try to, they have these issues like they were always prettier than me. You're identical. No, they were still always prettier.
I think it's that idea, though, of like two halves of something. One twin, even though they look alike, one's evil and one's good, or one's dark and one's light.
Well, and it also introduces a strong element of tension, because if they can look alike and pass each other, then suddenly you don't know who you can trust. The other characters don't know which twin they're talking to. And that uncertainty is a great way of keeping your reader guessing. So on to spouses. Now, particularly with this one, Heidi and I have talked a lot about romance in this podcast because we might just like romance and more particularly relationships in our stories. But with spouses in this case, we're really talking about the familial aspect and the family ties with it and how that can, increase drama in your story.
Yeah, I mean, marriage is great, but you are stuck with a person who may not necessarily see everything exactly the way that you do. may get frustrated if you don't clean the house well enough and you get mice.
Well, that's Bruce's fault.
I know, he is. Claire was in his face saying, "Why are you so lazy, Bruce?"
Oh man, I'm gonna have to steal that from my cat dragon character. That's gonna have to happen, but
I just didn't feel like catching mice.
Yeah, I mean, it's gross. You have to track them down. They get blood everywhere. There's not even much meat on those bones.
So yeah, marriage can cause a lot of tension, and especially if things aren't going well. I think that's why you tend to see more unhappy marriages in fiction than you do happy ones. Maybe I'm just thinking TV,
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of really stellar happy marriages in TV, but most of the time they're kind of rough or struggling because it does provide a room for growth and change. Mm-hmm. Whereas happy marriages are not static, there's still growth, but the growth usually is a little bit, it's more a couple hiccups than it is like the total dramatic thing.
Now that's the thing too. Like there are some instances of happy marriages, but usually that's in a story where the marriage is very much a side point and the marriage is a point of stability. Again, I'm thinking back to White Collar.
Yeah, White Collar was kind of Peter's go home and talk to the wife and figure things out.
Yeah, he needed that. And that's a way you can actually have a happy marriage in a story, is if it's occupying a place of stability in the story. But I mean, worst comes to worst, the best thing for a story can be a dead spouse. This is kind of like Janeen's morbid episode where she's like, just kill them all off and give everyone complications. But you see that a lot. I mean, especially if you're writing like adult fiction, or even if like it's YA and you like kill off the boyfriend or the girlfriend or something, like that can be a really great way to give your main character a serious complex and to add kind of a hint of romance, or at least hint that they're capable of it, but have it be more of a wound that makes it harder for that poor unfortunate next person who decides to fall in love with them. Yeah.
I have not really killed off a spouse, Janeen, yet. That's on my to-do list as a writer, but I have a really hard time doing that because I think I tend to write more romance-focused stuff, and it's harder to get away with my audience expecting happily ever after. That said, I do like to have tension in from my marriages that comes from the outside, something keeping them apart, be it magic, be it really nasty relatives.
Yeah, those things are great. And I think going back to the marriage thing, what helps me out is I do have this one story that has an immoral character. He's a vampire of some kind. And I was like, well, he seems really driven and he seems like really focused on the other character, but I can't have them get together this quickly, this happily. So I will like have his wife die in the past and like have it be something that he should have changed. And I'll give him a complex about that, which will make him like have some issues that my main character will be like, okay, dude, you got baggage. So we're going to hit the brakes on this a bit. So there are ways you can do it in the past. But again, I never had to kill off like a spouse who was actually an active character in a book. I think that would be really, really hard for me to do.
It's hard to do well. And then you bring them back and they end up being Rory.
The thing is, you can do married characters in stories for like a team dynamic. The personalities have to be just the right mix to keep it fresh. Actually, I'm reminded of your Spellsmith and Carver stuff where you have like Rill and Jericho married for like 2 books.
Yeah.
But their personalities work so well that you just kind of want to see them together because kind of like, oh, look at them. They're making out again. Is it any wonder they have kids so quickly? Anyway.
Well, spoilers, I do kind of throw a major wrench in their relationship, not necessarily from the fact that they're inner, but an external thing that happens. Mm-hmm. And that totally crushes Jericho for like several years.
Yes, it's wonderful. So you can do that. It just takes a lot more thought because people are so used to romance tropes. So while people might say, readers might say, we want to see more married couples in fiction. In fact, we're so used to seeing the romantic trope lead up to it that you, as writers, you have to work extra hard to make sure if you start with a couple that's already married, that you have a lot of external obstacles to throw at them and different challenges so that you do have something going forward in the story. Otherwise, you can get kind of stuck.
Yeah, or have the focus be something other than them. I mean, I think that you see a decent amount of husband and wife crime-solving mystery teams.
Yes, that's one area that you can really see it going really well. And again, because mystery can tie into urban fantasy, you can see urban fantasy. The Mercy Thompson series, they got married and the books are still going and everything. But what they did again is they took the marriage and made it an anchor point for the story.
Yeah.
So you can get away with that in some stories where, again, the plot isn't directly related to throwing the marriage in jeopardy every single book.
Now, Janeen, we've talked about the nuclear family, I guess we'd call it. So what gets outside of that?
Ooh, let's talk about some extended family relationships, Heidi. All those crazy aunts and uncles and mysterious grandparents who tell you half-truths about that crazy thing in the attic, and you go to the attic and you find a mysterious object of awesome doom or whatever.
Yeah, now I'm thinking National Treasure. That happened in National Treasure.
That's a really common one. Attics are like the place to go to find things. Attics and basements.
And unlike a grandparent can tend to be a little more permissive, a little bit less. There's less of an expectation from a grandparent to have their focus be on keeping you safe. They're more laid back traditionally. Or conversely, a lot of times it's easier to make them not be the one who you have to rescue because they might have health issues. They might be confined to their home or something because of health issues. So it makes it easier for the kid to relate, because I think that there is that sense of freedom. When you go to grandma's house, it's a vacation, it's a break. You get the candy.
Yep, same thing as like the crazy aunt or uncle, the crazy devil may care uncle who comes in and is like the fun, cool one who like says, oh no, we'll do just this. Don't, your dad doesn't have to know, but we're just going to go ahead and do it. Or, that mysterious, aunt that everyone talks about who says strange cryptic things or that stuff. The relative can be part of the mystery and can be part of the door that makes your protagonist step into the new world.
Yeah, and it lets you play with the parents too for like that. Why are they estranged from their father, mother, brother, sister, and why? And are they trying to keep you actively? Because the forbidden family connection is often very alluring to a kid.
Ooh, yes.
It's like, well, why can't I go to Uncle Jack's house?
And then, of course, what about cousins? We never hear about cousins in stories that much.
I guess there's got to be more cousins. I mean, everybody in the Lord of the Rings, all the hobbits are basically cousins. That's just that rural England, small farming community. Everybody is married to everybody and they're just interacting. So yes, so you have that whole first and second cousin twice removed. But it doesn't really come up as part of the plot. I mean, it's mentioned casually that they're family, but they're more just friends.
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on your situation. A lot of people have their cousins are their best friends growing up, and it's really influential because they're about the same age, and they go to family reunions and stuff. My mother was a young mom, and so I'm significantly older than all my cousins. So my cousins were the kids I babysat. So it's a slightly different dynamic.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I did have that with my cousins when I was younger, especially on mom's side. Like, I was pretty close to them. But, you get older, you move places, et cetera, and you don't stay as close. But I still have that kind of connection where, like, when my cousin, like, got married, it was vital that I be there. My husband was like, really? This is like a sword fighting? Like, nope. No, we are going to this wedding. So that can be a thing. And then I know cousins, you can use them to kind of throw a wrench in the plot, right there, Heidi?
Yeah, and especially if, I'm writing a really problematic cousin relationship right now in The Green Princess but that one's almost more an adopted sibling relationship. So I might want to talk about that later. But they hate each other.
So let's move on to adopted families. Those special people in your lives who you're connected with, but there's not actually a blood relationship. Especially in speculative fiction, you can do some fun things with magic and stuff to kind of make people more or less bonded in like more permanent ways. So it's not just, oh, we really like each other and we're really good friends, although that can be totally legit. But in speculative fiction, you know, you can literally have blood brothers, you can have blood bonds. I think it was the Mortal Instruments series that has the parapeti bonds, where like literally, you know, it makes you brother and sister, or brother and brother, or sister and sister. And I do this. I sort of have this in one of my stories where I have a cat dragon who decides to adopt a human. Only he's a shifter, so it's basically like a brother sister thing. But because he's a cat dragon, he refuses to label anything, because we don't label things, because that implies control, and he is not one to be controlled. Absolutely not. But then I also have Nuala Threadstane and Zilpath, and basically, again, I have the parents be kind of evil. So when the girl runs away and like the parents are evil, meets this crazy old lady, and basically the old lady kind of adopts her and shelters her and coaches her through having to grow up in this household where her parents are, you know, evil. So they have this really great, like, you know, again, it's called friendship, but it really is a very cool mother-daughter friendship going on there that brings out really neat things in characters, and kind of can sometimes connect different personalities that you wouldn't necessarily see together.
Yeah, and I also think the Brothers at Arms is a really powerful one, especially if you've got combat. That way you to form bonds where they may have saved each other's lives, they're fighting side by side. You have to have that trust, and there are a lot of fun relationships, or not necessarily, maybe not fun is the best word for them, Janine. I don't know. What do you think?
If you find it fun to write them, then sure, they're fun.
Yeah, it's fun to like experience them, even if they may have, you know, be friends because they literally went through hell together in one form or another, you know.
That's how friendships are formed, you know. Sometimes.
Forged in hell.
Yeah. Okay, I know that's got to be like, you know, friendships forged in hell. I feel like that's going to be like a tagline for something.
And now I want to write that. Dang it.
Yeah, wouldn't that be epic? That should be a new anthology, for like a new anthology type series.
So yeah, and then you get that whole blood debt. You got Han and Chewie, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh totally. Love Han and Chewie, love Han and Chewie. And then of course you can have some fun things, because you can have people getting kind of adopted into families, but only they didn't really want them to be there. I mean, look at Cinderella. You know, she had stepsisters. See how that went down. That was great.
Especially if you are a certain personality type and your parents bring another kid into the home and you don't know why they brought them in there, you know, there's that jealousy that forms. Mm-hmm. And it can cause a major chip on a character's shoulder. And it can either be something they have to overcome and get over with and learn to work with this new person that their parents have decided is part of their family, or it can go the other way and they can start being rivals who hate each other, and you get Thor and Loki, you know?
Oh, so that
really kind of sort of works out.
kind of ish. You haven't seen Infinity War, but then again, nothing in Infinity War is permanent, so you know it is what it is.
Yes.
All right, but the final thing with all these different types of families is keeping track of it and making it make sense in your plot. So we're talking about the stress of heredity. This can be characters inheriting traits or superpowers. Actually, this is something that I recently just wrote in a scene today, where I had one character who shall not be named discover that they, in fact, had a child. And the reason they knew they had a child is that their child had the same superpower that they did. And it's not a very common superpower. So you could have different magics or powers or traits, you know, be passed down and have that be a way of connection, a point of conflict. And they use that with the Green Princess, with the different scenes and all that stuff.
Yeah, the magic is hereditary in that one, and who gets what powers are very much based on blood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who can get what. Like, people are literally trying to kill off older siblings so they can be the one to inherit the most powerful magic.
Isn't family great?
Family's so nice. But yeah, I think that with the whole, it ties back to the orphan/lost child separated from their parents thing. The people are always trying to scramble to find some specific way to identify the missing princess, you know, who was stolen away as a baby. Is it a birthmark? Is it a scar? Is there some sort of magic test for royalty with a pea under their mattress?
All those fun things. Now, the thing is with Heidi, with doing family trees for these things, it can be really tempting to just make a giant family tree like before you even have a story written, can't it?
Yeah, I think it can. And some stories might actually lend to this. Like if your story really deals with a lot of history and royal inheritance and cross-family politics. Like I was the purist as a kid who had to try to read. I don't know if you tried this, Janine. I tried to read the appendix of the Lord of the Rings as well as the
yes.
Yes. Boom. Yep. And they have a lot of family trees back there.
Oh yes. And I read through all of them and tried to keep track of all of them. And I did okay with that. And then I think it was the first 5 books of the history of Middle Earth. And I was like, no, I'm done. And these guys aren't even like alive.
And some of it kind of matters, like Aragorn's line of descent that makes him, able to be the king.
Yeah. Or
the fact that Bilbo and Frodo it's not really uncle and nephew. It's more like third cousins or something. It's kind of complex.
Or the fact that Aragorn, in fact, fell in love with his incredibly, incredibly distant cousin.
Yeah, very distant. I think that has a hereditary thing there. Technically, we're all related, probably.
Yeah. But these things can be helpful, especially one of the biggest stressors being, royal inheritance. Who gets the throne? Who gets the power? And if that's going to be a major part of your story, then yeah, you need to figure out, where the lines of ascension are and who needs to get killed off for what and which people don't like which people. And you can get into a lot of really complicated politics with that.
Yeah, you can also get some world building in there, like what relationships are held in higher esteem. Is there a gender bias? Do women and men both have equal rights to ascension? What about there are some cultures, I believe, that consider your uncle to be a closer relative to you than your father because it's easier to prove who your mother's brother is than who your father is.
Dang.
Especially if there's not like a monogamous.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
Or if a polyamorous society in some way. So that could be a thing. So it lets you kind of break open your world building to see how are these relationships matter. Is family the most important, or is there something that supersedes it in this world? Is it politics, military, who you went to school with? I think that our society does value blood relationships and adopted relationships, but does your society, and what do you want them to value?
Yeah, exactly. And how complicated do you want to make that? And, what kind of tropes do you want to keep or kind of things that you want to break? And again, be aware as you're doing different things with family, be aware of your readers, what they're going to expect from your genre. So if you're going to break things, make sure they know that and know their cultural background, know what's going to make them pause more than other people. If you're trying to have a different kind of family system that isn't monogamous and your readership, comes from a culture that's largely, monogamous, it's going to be, you're going to have to explain things a bit more for them to actually understand why this is a thing at all. You saying, well, why don't they just marry one person and be done with it? And it's like, oh, that's not how they work.
Yeah. And if your characters catch on, modern America, even second or third cousins, it's got that ick factor.
Oh, totes, yeah.
Yeah, historically that has not been the case.
Yeah, not even in the Regency period or stuff. As long as they were second cousins, you're good to go. Maybe first cousins, but sometimes first cousins were considered a good thing. I know in some I have a friend who lives in the Middle East for a time, and she's like, no, marrying your first cousin is totally a thing.
Yeah. So you got to balance what can you get away with your audience, what fits your society. It's kind of a complex mess that's probably not going to make everybody happy there.
Yeah, going back to our thing, you will not make everyone happy.
You just put that on a t-shirt and wear it.
But that is okay, because as long as you're connecting with your readership and doing things well, then go forth and do a thing.
Do a thing.
Now, what are we doing next week, Heidi?
Next week, Janine, we are having our book explosion, and these are some of my favorite episodes because to outline them, I basically just go to Goodreads and say, well, what did I like?
Amen. We are a fan of the Goodreads challenge list here because they just let you keep track of your life.
Yeah, we're specifically going to be dealing with books that cover different familial relationships, good and bad, healthy and not so healthy, and how those shake down to influence plots and character growth. in our favorite books.
Awesome. And we totally want you there because we want you to find all the cool new things to add to your already growing to be read pile.
Awesome.
And please keep an eye out on our Facebook page or on Twitter or on SoundCloud or our website or on iTunes. Drop us reviews. Let us know what you're thinking of the episodes. Share our stuff around. We're totally cool with sharing. It's all good. And thank you so much for tuning into Indie Book Magic.